as you know, is the organization responsible for implementing the vision of the Beltline. And quarterly briefings are intended to be a forum for updates for all of the different elements of the Beltline. So tonight also serves as an opportunity to ask your in-depth questions about the project. In addition, to help in the experience this evening, we have enabled a live transcription option. And if you'd like to view this in that option, please click on live transcription at the bottom of your screen to select that preference. Additionally, tonight's meeting, a copy of the recording and the presentation have been posted to our website at beltline.org/meetings. And just a reminder, when you registered this evening, you may have noticed that you had to provide some demographic details, and collecting that information and demographic information is really designed to help us to better serve the public and meet the participants where they are. And so this helps us identify disparity and gaps and make informed decisions that ultimately create a more equitable and inclusive Atlanta Beltline redevelopment process. So our goal is to create a Beltline that benefits all the communities. And the only way we know to do that is by collecting and analyzing that data. So we want to thank you in advance for sharing your information, but please know that that information is kept confidential, and the information is aggregated to ensure your complete and total privacy. And so with that, I'd like to introduce the CEO of the Atlanta Beltline, Mr. Clyde Higgs.
Thank you, Lynette. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Again, my name is Clyde Higgs, and I am the president and CEO for Atlanta BeltLine, Inc., and welcome tonight to our fourth quarterly briefing. I just wanted to stop, and as we think about the end of the year and all of our accomplishments, one of the things that I would love for you all to hear is just the hard work that the women and men here at Atlanta BeltLine do every day to push this, what we describe as the largest redevelopment project of its kind in the country, to the next steps. They do it for the next generations, their kids, grandkids, as well as your kids. All the construction projects that you will hear about tonight, and I want to make sure that we give her flowers, if you will, and that is under the leadership of Kim Wilson. Kim is our vice president for design and construction, and they have been doing an amazing job for what we like to describe as the People's Project. Also, the work of our affordable housing team and our economic development team, all of that goes hand in hand with the infrastructure that we advance. Also, the external affairs department, which includes communications, community planning, and engagement, as well as government affairs. And they support all the work in engaging you with regards to community input. We also have a small but mighty team that produces art on the Atlanta Beltline, and want to recognize the work that they do. Working hard behind the scenes are real estate, legal, finance, procurement, our administrative staff, and more. And so I just want to expressly say that I appreciate each and every one of you and all the work that you do for what we again describe as the People's Project. And I also want to share this, and this is with mixed emotion. She doesn't know that we're going to do this, but Jenny Odom. Jenny is a senior communications manager who has been with the Beltline since 2012. This is officially going to be her last quarterly briefing for Beltline. And so Jenny, I know that you are on one of these blocks here, but wanted to recognize your service to the People's Project, the Atlanta Beltline. One of my fond memories with Jenny is just going through the very robust conversations that we needed to have during the Special Service District, where ultimately that generated about $100 million to support the development of the Atlanta Beltline. So if you all can indulge me a minute, let's just give Jenny a virtual round of applause. Thank you, Jenny, for all that you've done for this project. And we'll go into the next slide. It has been really incredible times from a construction perspective. We've had 3 groundbreakings, 1 ribbon cutting, 2 streetscape and 1 access point project underway. Again, we expect, going to the next slide, please, a number of projects going into 2024. But the heart of this, and we've got to remember, we had some really challenging conversations about housing affordability years ago, but we are in a strong place. Still a lot of work that needs to be done, but we are approaching 60% of our affordable housing goal of 5,600 units of affordable housing in the Beltline tax allocation district. But the star of the show, from my perspective, is the land that we have acquired around the Beltline Loop for future housing affordability. And you all know this, but when you control the land, you can do what we describe as deeper and long-term affordability. We've nearly quadrupled our land holdings for housing affordability over the last 3 years or so. And go to the next slide, please. And 2024 is looking impressive as well. We expect to have about 13 construction projects for next calendar year. One of the stats that we like to share is that this time next year, 85% of the Beltline Trail will be complete or under construction. That's significant. And so the story that I shared about Jenny and the SSD, philanthropic fundraising, federal grants, also the growth of the TAD has all provided the necessary resources for us to complete the loop. Still lots of work to be done from an affordable housing perspective, economic development perspective, parks, and obviously future Beltline transit. You can see one of the renderings here. But we are very bullish. We think, again, 2024 is going to be another stellar year for the Beltline. Go to the next slide. And also, we wanted to do this and just provide you just a recap of a lot of those highlights that I just touched on. But if you can indulge us for about 3 minutes, we have a really impressive video that the communications team has put together. So let's start the video.
2023 has been a landmark year for the Atlanta BeltLine, and we're proud of the progress made in building for the generations to come. Here are just a few of our big wins. 1.2 miles of newly opened paved Beltline trail following the ribbon cutting of Northeast Trail Segment 2. That makes 10.6 miles of open mainline trail. A record 3 groundbreakings took place in the South Side, West Side, and Northeast Trails. And in fact, 85% of the 22 miles of mainline trail will be complete or under construction by the end of 2024. The Beltline worked with numerous disadvantaged business enterprises toward this goal, and the Georgia Minority Supplier Development Council recognized the Beltline as a rising star committed to supplier diversity. Housing goals on track for 2030. We have again exceeded our annual housing goal for the year, and we are now well over 60% of the way toward our goal of creating or preserving 5,600 affordable housing units. Protecting legacy residents. The Legacy Resident Retention Program doubled its numbers this year. Now, 216 qualified homeowners living in Beltline communities will have peace of mind with their property tax increases paid by this program through 2030. Expanding affordability options through land acquisition. The purchase of 13.7 acres of land adjacent to Pittsburgh Yards brings the Beltline's total land holdings to 86 acres, dedicated to building long-term commercial and residential affordability. Funding to connect to MARTA. Thanks to congressional support and a $25 million raised grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation, we will be able to connect the Northeast Trail to the Marta Lindbergh Center Station, Armour Otley, and a regional trail network. New support for small businesses. The BeltLine Business Solutions Office launched, offering its hallmark accelerator program, BeltLine Business Ventures, and other tailored business support services to help empower entrepreneurs. One step closer to BeltLine Transit with the launch of the BeltLine Transit Study, MARTA Streetcar East Extension reaching 30% design, and convening leaders and the community to discuss preparing Atlanta for future growth. Providing access to opportunity through BeltLine Marketplace. The inaugural BeltLine Marketplace businesses gained access to 2 million visitors during the pilot incubator program. Over 120 businesses applied for the second cycle, which will launch in the spring. Year of the Youth. Thousands of Atlanta's youth participated in a wider range of activities that included internships, athletic events, a bike giveaway, walk with a doc, public art exhibitions and activations, and more. Every accomplishment brings us one step closer to fulfilling the BeltLine vision of a more equitable, inclusive, and sustainable city. Whether you walk, run, ride, or roll, we hope to see you soon on the Atlanta BeltLine.
All right. Thank you so much, Lynette, for opening things up, and Clyde for welcoming us. And again, I've worked with Jenny a long time. Shout out. I'm going to miss you. My name is Nathan Soldat. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Atlanta BeltLine here. We're going to do a quick overview of the meeting format for tonight. It looks like we're joined by about 74 attendees. We also have folks on our Facebook and YouTube platforms. If you're watching on the Zoom platform, Facebook Live, or even on YouTube, you can follow along on the agenda at the top of each slide. If you're listening by phone, I will walk us through the meeting agenda at this time. So as you can see, we've kicked things off with some welcomes, some meeting logistics, some high-level overviews of what we've been up to in, 2023. We're going to follow this up with a little bit of audience polling, a quick BeltLine 101 to ground the room. And after that, we'll have the pleasure of hearing some updates from Atlanta BeltLine Partnership, our sister organization. We'll have plenty of time at the end for some question to answer, and we will get right into that as soon as we can. Now, a little bit of housekeeping. If you wanted to ask a question in the Q&A box, now is not the time to do so. We're going to wait till we get to that portion of the agenda. If you place a question in the Q&A box prior to the completion of the presentation, we're just going to go ahead and dismiss it to ensure that everybody has had the opportunity to hear the presentation without distraction. No worries though, your question's not gone forever. Any dismissed questions can be retrieved in the answer section of the Q&A box. Copy it, paste it, put it back in there if you still think it's relevant, and we will certainly do our best to get to as many questions, if not all, before the meeting's over. You've probably also noticed that your line is muted. You're not going to be able to share your screen, and the idea here is that we want to create the most best and unique listening experience for everybody in the audience. We are recording this meeting, and we will post this at beltline.org/meetings. If you want to follow along with the presentation, it's already there. If you run into any technical difficulties, don't hesitate to email engage@atlbeltline.org. If we encounter any technical difficulties, we definitely appreciate your patience as we sort them out. So a little bit of audience polling, a little interactivity, almost like we're in the same room here. So we're going to launch the first poll. Should pop up on your screen in just a moment. I think it has now. So we're just asking where you're from. Are you in one of our BeltLine neighborhoods in the Northeast, Southeast, Southwest, or Northwest quadrants of Atlanta? Are you in a neighborhood in Atlanta that's not directly near or adjacent to the BeltLine? Or perhaps you live outside of the city of Atlanta, be it the suburbs or beyond. We have quite a bit of interest in the project, and it's always interesting to see where folks are coming from. This also gives us a sense of the room. So we're trending up to about 46. Still coming on. And at 50, we'll go ahead and lock that in. It's very good participation. We have representation across the board. And this is a bit unusual, but we do have about 13 folks who are from outside the city of Atlanta. But the balance are Atlanta residents. Very interesting. Next slide. How long have you lived in your neighborhood? So we have a couple different categories here, should pop up any second. 1 to 5 years, 6 to 10 years, or you've been there for a hot minute, 11 or more years. We'll give folks some time. Let's see if we can beat that 50. Looks like we might. All right, we're already at 49, 50. All right, in the interest of saving time for the Q&A, we'll lock that in at 52. All right, so we have strong showing from years, 6 to 10 years at 23%, and 1 to 5 years at 29%. Next slide. What is your relationship to the Beltline? Now, I know you may have more than one relationship, but we're just asking you to kind of pick your primary one. So for the benefit of any folks on the phone, I'll quickly read through these. Trail user, homeowner in a Beltline neighborhood, a renter of a home in a Beltline neighborhood, a residential landlord in a Beltline neighborhood, a business owner in a Beltline neighborhood, commercial landlord, a developer, a real estate broker, a community activist or advocate, or perhaps you just have kind of a general interest in the project. You've been kind of tracking us along and you want to receive an update tonight and maybe ask a few questions. This one always takes a little bit longer, but we're already at 52 participants. We'll go ahead and lock that in. All right. So we have quite a few homeowners on the call tonight, some trail users. We have a few renters, business owners, a developer, a real estate broker, 2 community activists, and some general interest in the project. So our last question portion of the evening is going to be, is tonight your first meeting? Your first Beltline meeting, I should say. Now, we're talking virtual. We're talking pre-pandemic, when we all used to meet in person, all across the city of Atlanta. Are you new to it? Have you been with us for a while? All right. And again, 51, we'll lock that in, 52. So we have 46 individuals who have experienced and or participated in a Beltline neighborhood in the Beltline meeting in the past. And no shock, 7 folks, this is their first meeting. Welcome. We're really happy you're joining us. We almost always have some new folks on the line. And for that reason, we like to ground the room with a quick Beltline 101. So we'll do that right now. I could easily spend the next hour. You might get bored of me talking, but I'm not going to. I'm going to keep this in about 3 minutes. But the Beltline means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Keeping in mind that the Beltline is effectively a loop, a 22-mile loop around the city. It's a loop that really is originally envisioned as a transit and transportation corridor in an effort to break down barriers that the railroad itself, that physical infrastructure, creates neighborhoods. In other words, this is a project, as Clyde says, the People's Project, that is designed to bring our Atlanta neighbors and communities together. And we're doing that through a number of different strategic efforts. So we mentioned the transit briefly, 22 miles of light rail streetcar, modern transit infrastructure is envisioned around the entire corridor connecting to MARTA, complemented by a trail network that many folks are already familiar with. But what are we connecting? We're connecting quite a few different elements, including 1,300 acres of new green space. We are connecting folks, jobs, and housing. We have a goal of 5,600 units of affordable workforce housing by the time we hit 2030, and a goal of $10 billion in economic development by 2030, as well as 48,000 one-year construction jobs, 50,000 permanent jobs. We have arguably one of the largest public art exhibits in the Southeast, and that is sprinkled all across our completed trail network. As we move around the corridor, if you think about the fact that these are old freight railroad lines, there was a lot of industrial uses. So there's a whole element of environmental cleanup, the planting of trees for a linear arboretum, and a number of other elements that weave through the Beltline. But we do this through community engagement. We do this with the community as our partner. And I think you can see that reflected many ways in our vision statement. This is sort of our North Star, if you will. And that is to be the catalyst for making Atlanta a global beacon for equitable, inclusive, and sustainable city life. So we can't do that on our own. It is our North Star. It is a heavy vision, and we are trying to live up to that task. I can know for one, I am proud to say I work at the Beltline. So I've taken enough of your time. I know you're here for the updates. Let's jump right in. It's my unique pleasure to introduce our Director of Design and Construction, Kim Wilson.
Thank you, Nathan. I just want to thank Clyde for all the accolades for the team. We really do have an amazing team at the Atlanta BeltLine, and I think everybody at the BeltLine has, they're all holding an oar that's rowing and pushing this boat forward. So we have an amazing team, and we have the right team in place to get this done, including the team that I lead in design and construction. So it's a very exciting time to be working on this project. As Clyde mentioned, we've accomplished a lot this year, and I was thinking an analogy would be that we've sort of been jogging, and at the end of this year we started running, and I think next year we're going to be at a full sprint, which is really exciting, and that includes the trail construction, a park, 2 streetscape projects, and it also includes transit moving forward. So we're in a great position. We have so much going on right now that I'm going to use this slide to kind of update on where we are on some design, and then I'm going to focus, my slides are focused on construction updates. But I think one of the exciting things from a construction standpoint is that we have 4 segments or sections of the Beltline under construction right now, and next year we're expecting to have at least 7 sections of the Beltline under construction. So that represents the kind of entire lower U of the Beltline, or as Clyde said, 80% to 85% of the Beltline. So the other good news about design is the northern arc of the Beltline. You can kind of see it in purple. That includes the Northwest Trail, which has 5 segments, and the Northeast Trail segment 3, and a bunch of connector trails. By the end of this year, upcoming year, 2024, we're expecting to be 100% complete with all of that design. And that's a huge milestone because, it allows us to start prepping for construction and moving segments into construction. And we actually think we're going to move 2 of the Northwest sections into construction this year. We are also just now executing a contract on Southside Trail Segment 6 to move design forward to put a permanent bridge over I-20. So we have a lot of design going on, and most of it is going to be complete by the end of the year, which is really exciting. So as we move forward with the slides, I'll be focused on our construction projects. Northeast Trail Segment 1 runs along Piedmont Park, and this project started construction in November. And it's a really straightforward section of trail, so we're actually expecting to finish it within a year. So hopefully by this time next year, you'll be able to get on this trail. We'll have it open, we'll have a groundbreaking. And what that will do is it'll connect into the East Side Trail that is so popular, and it'll connect in at Monroe Drive. So at that point, the East Side Trail and the Northeast Trail will be about 6 miles of continuous trail. So we're excited to deliver this project. Next slide. We recently opened Northeast Trail Segment 2. To the public, and we are still working on a couple of projects. We have a connecting sidewalk at Mason Street. You can see the construction here. We're constructing a retaining wall, and once that's built, we'll move the curb out and put a sidewalk in so that people can easily get to the Beltline and safely get to the Beltline. We're also putting in final landscaping on this project, but it is open, and we're substantially complete with construction. Ponce Streetscape is going to provide important connectivity to the East Side Trail, including safe biking and pedestrian connectivity. I really love this photo that I took because we have finished the sidewalk rehabilitation on one side of the street. And as you can see in the picture, people are already using it. The number of pedestrians and bikers that are using that has already increased tremendously. So this project includes an access point at East Side Trail that'll connect into the right near the Whole Foods complex. And we're expecting this project to be complete by June of 2024. So this should be open next year. So really, I'm very excited about Southside Trail. We have some great news. As I mentioned, Southside Trail Segment 6 is open right now in an interim condition, and we just released the design contract to start putting in a permanent bridge across I-20 that will be dedicated to pedestrians and bicyclists, so that's great. We have Southside Trail 4 and 5 under construction, and this month we posted the bid for Southside Trail 2 and 3. Southside Trail 2 and 3 is a federally funded project. We hit an amazing milestone. Our grants manager and our government affairs team, they were able to get 80% of this project funded by federal funding, which is the maximum. And that included a raise grant that we were awarded for $16.4 million. So we've posted the bid. Because it is a federally funded project, it's going to take a little bit longer to get it out to construction. Once we get the bids in, we have to go through another federal process to start construction. But we think that we will have this project under construction by May of next year. So that, and it's a 2-year project schedule. So what I'm excited about is that 2 years from when we start construction, we're going to have the east and the west side connected, and the South Side Trail complete. So it's a really important milestone that we've hit there. This is a picture of South Side Trail Segment 4 and 5. This project's going really well. As I mentioned, it's under construction. It's scheduled to open in May of 2025, assuming that we don't run into any schedule delays. You can see in this picture, we're the historic Ormwood Bridge, and we are actually putting a parallel bridge next to the historic Ormwood Bridge. As many of you know, we try to preserve corridor for future transit. So we, in this situation, made the decision to build an adjacent bridge dedicated to pedestrian and bike traffic so that in the future, when transit comes in, there's a bridge available for them to use. So you can see a column being poured here. That column's actually been poured. We're moving very quickly. We've made really great progress on this project, and it's moving along really well. Next slide. Oh, West Side Trail Segment 4. This is another project that's scheduled to finish in May of 2025. A really complicated project. This project has sections of the trail where we don't have an abandoned rail line. So we have a lot of elevated sections of trail trying to get around existing infrastructure over MARTA. It's a very complicated project. The original schedule was 2.5 years. We may be able to finish it a little bit earlier. We may be able to open parts of it early. We're evaluating that right now, but we're on schedule, and we're expecting it to be open in May of 2025. And in this view here, you can see those elevated structures are going to be a future ramp connecting into an access point. We're putting some retaining walls in. So it's moving along really, really well. RDA Access Point has been a project we've been working really hard to get moving. We had to get some complicated GDOT permits in order to start construction on this project, and we received the permits, and we are under construction. This is going to provide important connectivity for the Westview neighborhood and safe crossing across, I believe it's South Gordon Street. It'll have a plaza, a ramp, and a stair to provide access to the existing West Side Beltline Trail. And it also necks down some of the adjacent street and puts in protected crosswalks so that people from the neighborhood can safely get onto the Beltline. This project is a pretty quick one compared to most of our projects, and we should be done in May of 2024. RDA Streetscape is another project that required a complicated GDOT permit, and we received it, and we are mobilizing construction this month. This project will provide important streetscape improvements to the main business district over on the west side, including new sidewalks, new crosswalks, new bike lanes. And like I mentioned, we are scheduled to be under construction this month and then complete by May of 2024. And as I mentioned, we're scheduled to have 100% design on the Northwest Trail by the end of the year, but we're already moving really fast on 2 sections of the Northwest Trail. One is Northwest Segment 1. We have hired what is called a construction manager at risk for this project. And That allows us to release some of the items that are harder to procure and get our hands on, like a bridge and the steel for a bridge early. So we are actually expecting to release some of those early orders and early material orders as early as March of this year. And depending on how we finish the drawings, we're supposed to finish the drawings by April. We'll probably move into more construction around April of next year. So this project's moving along really well, and that CM at risk arrangement and contract is allowing us to get the project moving sooner before the drawings are even complete. The other advantage of CM at risk is that we can really communicate with the neighborhood about logistics and parking and answer questions with the contractor before we even start construction. So look for a community meeting coming up if you live in this area and you have questions. It'll give you a chance to meet the contractor early and give them input on what they're planning to do. And finally, Northwest Trail Segment 5, which is on the other side of the Northwest. We have the drawings 100% complete. We're ready to bid this construction. We have one real estate transaction that we have to finish, and it's a complicated real estate transaction. So right now we can't definitively say when we're going to start construction. Once we get that real estate transaction closed, then we can set the bid schedule and announce to the community when we think we're going to be mobilizing for construction. One of the things about the Northwest Trail is that we don't have an existing abandoned rail line. So the number of real estate transactions on all of these segments is significant because we're having to work with property owners all along the Northwest Trail. So real estate is the king over there. And as soon as we get this moving, we'll let you know, but we really expect it to happen in 2024 and hopefully in the first half of 2024. And that is our highlights. It's a lot. I'm going to turn it over next to Sean Green, who's going to present on our transit progress. Sean is our principal engineer on the design and construction team, and he is also our in-house transit guru and leader. It's all yours, Sean.
Thanks, Kim. Transit on the Beltline has been, from the very beginning, the core of the program of projects that we call the Beltline. Our vision, kind of like our trail, is a green vision. It's not a park, it's a transportation corridor, right? But it is a green vision that we are pushing that, you know, to complement the aesthetics of the corridor as we know it. Ideally, we would have started off with transit, but here we are. We do have a transit study underway. It's looking at the Northwest quadrant primarily for the purposes of identifying an alignment. Kind of like the trail in the Northwest, we don't have that abandoned railroad corridor. So we are going to find a corridor that we need and identify that preferred alternative, preferred alignment. We've kicked this off with the community in October, and we'll be having lots of additional work and community outreach over the course of time. Project is expected to take about 2 years, so we're hoping to finish it up in the spring of 2025. It's about 13 miles, 14 miles, depending upon what alignment we end up going with. In the southeast and the southwest quadrants, we'll be nailing down platform locations for stops, and we'll be looking, basically trying to make sure that we have the best possible cross-section for the corridor as we can possibly have. Kimley Horn is our planning and engineering consultant out of their Charlotte office. Nationwide experts in rail transit planning and engineering. The study itself is it's a federalized planning study. There's $2.8 million of FTA grant funds that were awarded to the city of Atlanta. And Atlanta BeltLine Inc. is the subgrantee to the city and is providing the 20% local match for this study project. Since we've kicked off the study, we have set up the equity stakeholder committee. We've set up a technical stakeholder committee. We've set up 4 or 5, maybe 6, I can't remember the exact number, roundtable, kind of focus groups type of a situation. We've done some pop-ups. We were at Atlanta Streets Alive in December. We were at Pies and Porches, or Porches and Pies, way back in the fall, earlier in the fall, late summer, in Reynoldstown, Cabbagetown area. So we've been out and about and working. As 2024 rolls around, we'll be having a lot more community engagement on this front as well. Next slide, please. And so, as you know, as Beltline is doing the transit study and looking at planning for the network, the great thing is that our friends at MARTA have funding for the first expansion of the Atlanta streetcar. So when you build out a transit network, or any network, but in this context, when you build out a transit network, you got to start somewhere and then you add to it over time. So the starter line, the Atlanta streetcar as we know it now, opened in 2014, but it was never envisioned to just be that. It was always envisioned to be part of a larger network with crosstown service in Midtown, downtown, other parts of the city, as well as around the Beltline. So this is a fantastic first step. We'll get, it's roughly a 2-mile expansion of the existing service, and it gets from the downtown loop along Edgewood up to the northeast along the Beltline to get to Ponce de Leon Avenue. So that is absolutely fantastic that we got this coming. And it's all part of the transportation system, right? So we've got MARTA Local Bus, we've got MARTA Heavy Rail, and this is all part of the expansion of that kind of middle tier of high capacity transit with respect to the light rail. And you think about the last 50, 100, 150 years in the city of Atlanta and how the development of infrastructure shapes our lives now, whether it be the original freight rail network that created the city, or, the city streets that have sprung up, the interstate highway system, the MARTA network of bus and rail. All of these, have shaped where we are right now. And so when you think about some of that infrastructure having been designed explicitly to exclude people, when you think about what Beltline's trying to do with respect to explicitly trying to include and connect people, we're really trying to set this up so that the Beltline can be one of the things that shapes the city for the next 50 to 100 years. The other thing that we got to remember is that not changing is not an option. We expect the city's population to double over the course of time. We expect the regional population to increase by about 2 million people over the next 20 years. And we got to be making large investments in mass transit to be able to move people around. And the streetcar network is one of those ways that we can connect activity centers within the city and get that last mile, first mile connectivity, not only within the streetcar network itself, but also out to the heavy rail network that MARTA has and the local bus network. And that's, our friends at MARTA in the city have prioritized 9 tier 1 projects. You can see them in this map here. That's where the more MARTA half-penny sales tax for transit is programmed to go first, right? So there's a tier 2 program where there's a lot more Beltline investment, but right now the tier 1 program, and you can see it here in a couple different ways. There's bus rapid transit, there's arterial rapid transit in all quadrants of the city. So there's a lot of investment in transit that's coming to Atlanta, which is absolutely critical to helping us move around and get connected better than we are right now. Next slide, please. So in terms of some details with respect to Streetcar East, the project is currently at 30%. MARTA's planning has moved it over into the capital delivery program. And they're working right now to execute a contract with a design engineer who will deliver final construction plans for the streetcar over the course of the next couple years. ultimately, the goal is to have the system open for service carrying customers in 2028. There's a lot of opportunity for involvement and community engagement on the project as it comes forward. We also know that there's some things that need to get fixed, probably with the downtown streetcar as it currently exists. So one of the first things out of the gate that we expect is that MARTA's consultant is going to be looking at some operational improvements for the existing system. And then, looking at vehicle technology to see if there's opportunities to go off wire, looking at the guideway design in detail, and get that as green as possible. And so if you take a look at this map here, next to the map is a photo of a tram system in France where they have a vehicle that runs entirely off wire and in green track. And it's a gorgeous implementation. So from an alignment perspective, you can see the existing downtown streetcar loop and the dashed black line. The intention is to extend it out Edgewood, to Randolph, to Auburn, to Irwin, and then into the Beltline corridor. And you can see that there's 3 station or stop locations with platforms identified where we'd be onloading and offloading passengers from the train. So 2028 is a little bit away, but it'll be here before we know it. And really looking forward to continuing our work with MARTA and the city to push the transit agenda. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea Arkin, who is our Senior Policy and Development Manager within our Housing Policy Group. Chelsea?
Thanks so much, Sean, for the exciting update. I'm here to give you an update on our affordable housing progress at the Beltline. Affordable housing production continues to be a priority for the Atlanta Beltline. Our progress to date includes the creation and preservation of 3,333 affordable housing opportunities for families within the Beltline's tax allocation district. This puts us more than 59% of the way towards satisfying our long-term goal of creating and preserving 5,600 units of affordable housing within the Beltline TAD by 2030. As you can see from the right side of this graphic, we could not create or preserve these homes without our partnerships with Invest Atlanta, the City of Atlanta, the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, Atlanta Housing, the Development Authority of Fulton County, as well as many others. It's also important to note that 803 of these units can be directly attributed to the City of Atlanta's inclusionary zoning ordinance. The legislation was sponsored by Mayor Andre Dickens back in 2018 when he served as a member of City Council. ABI is also tracking units that are created and preserved within a half-mile outside of the tax allocation district, and we refer to this area as the Beltline Planning Area. And to date, nearly 1,800 units of affordable housing have been created or preserved within the Beltline Planning Area, and we can attribute 131 to the inclusionary zoning ordinance. So combined, if you look at the middle of your screen, over 5,000 households in Beltline communities will benefit from affordable housing. Next slide. So this slide shows ABI's housing production since 2006. So as I mentioned before, we are currently over 59% of the way towards satisfying our long-term goal of producing 5,600 units by 2030. And we have several closings planned for the end of the year, which will then put us over 63% of the way towards our goal. These closings will add an additional 202 units. So we will end the year having created and or preserved over 400 total units of affordable housing with help from our partners that I mentioned before, like Invest Atlanta, City of Atlanta, Atlanta Housing, and the Development Authority of Fulton County. And so we will begin 2024 having created and or preserved 3,555 units of affordable housing. So I want to explain this number a little bit. So it includes several market rate properties with inclusionary zoning units. It also includes the conversion of a former motel into 54 permanent supportive housing units to house individuals who have experienced homelessness. It also includes affordable for sale housing in a community land trust model, as well as several developments that have received funding from ABI's TAD Increment Fund, which is managed by Invest Atlanta. And we also expect another deal to close in early 2024, which will add an additional 160 units to our count. So with this progress to meet our 2030 goal, we will have to create or preserve 290 units annually, and we expect to exceed this goal. Next slide. As part of our affordable housing strategy, ABI has been strategically acquiring land within the Beltline TAD, specifically to create long-term affordable housing and commercial options around the corridor. We recognize that if we can control the dirt, then we can ensure what is developed on it is designed to meet the community's needs. And we actually currently have about 83 acres between 6 locations that we are actively working to site plan and or have redeveloped for their most impactful use. So I'm going to discuss a couple of these properties right now. So first, I'd like to give an update on our 579 Garson Drive site. We've discussed this property previously, but 579 Garson is a nearly 3-acre property in the South Buckhead Lindbergh neighborhood. This is a really unique site given the location and its proximity to MARTA's Lindbergh Station and adjacency to Peachtree Creek. ABI released an RFP for this property in January 2023, and development proposals were due in May. And in October, our developer finalists submitted an application to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs 4% low-income housing tax credit program. So if they're awarded, this will bring permanent affordable housing units to the Buckhead Lindbergh area. The second property that I want to talk about is our 350 Chapel Road site, which is a 6.3-acre site that we acquired in June in the historic Weston Heights Grove Park neighborhood. This sits close to our other Chapel Road site, which I will discuss next. So in cooperation with Atlanta nonprofit City of Refuge, which serves communities on the city's west side, we worked with a developer to also submit an application to the same 4% low-income housing tax credit program through the Georgia Department of Community Affairs. I do want to note that this is a really competitive program and it's very oversubscribed, but we really hope to hear if we are awarded for either project in the first part of 2024. Next slide. So the next site I'd like to discuss is our property at 425 Chapel Road. This site is a 30-acre assemblage that is adjacent to Maddox Park and adjacent to 30 acres of city-owned land that will eventually front directly to West Side Trail Segment 4, which Kim mentioned is currently under construction. So in coordination with the City of Atlanta, we've been working to develop a master plan for all 60 acres of land. Ultimately, our work will culminate in RFP offerings for mission-aligned developer partners. And so we really have a tremendous opportunity to create a truly catalytic development for the neighborhood with this 60 acres, bringing in much needed housing and retail options to meet the needs of the community. We also have a great opportunity to improve park and green space in the area, improve bike and pedestrian mobility, improve connectivity both internally and to the regional trail network. And so since April, we've held about 4 public meetings, 4 stakeholder committee meetings, and many events in nearby parks to keep the community up to date on our progress. So what you're seeing here is the current iteration of our site plan, which is still a work in progress. So this current plan envisions over 3,200 residential units and 123,000 square feet of commercial space. We plan to develop the property in phases, and the ABI portion of the site, which is on the left, will be the first part. In 2024, we'll kick off our phase 2 of community engagement, where we'll work really closely with the community to drill down to community benefit principles that will then carry over into the RFPs that will be developed for the site. I'd like to now turn it over to Kelvin Collins, the Vice President of Economic Development for ABI. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, and good evening, everyone. A pleasure to be with you this evening. And I'd like to kick us off by just offering a reminder that the Beltline's economic inclusion framework consists of 5 areas of focus, and that includes small business support, commercial district support, workforce development or ability to connect to quality jobs, commercial affordability, which is going to be a critical area of focus as we move into the new year, as well as digital inclusion and innovation, which I'll share a bit more this evening. Through these programs and activities that align with each of these pillars, our goal is clear. Make sure that local small businesses adjacent commercial districts, and residents benefit from the economic growth around the corridor. So it's not just one solution, it's an integrated approach that we're taking to deliver value to our community. And as noted in our highlight video, with the support of the US EDA, ABI launched the Business Solutions Office, and we're now delivering comprehensive, tailored support for helping small businesses scale around the Beltline. In fact, this week was a pretty busy one for us. Our first Beltline Business Ventures cohort graduated more than 20 businesses. And so our team is working hard with these local businesses to connect them to physical locations on the Beltline. In addition, if you're unaware, we also have a quarterly business breakfast where we're creating a community of small businesses around the Beltline, and they can attend these breakfast events to access technical assistance, information on funding opportunities, site selection services, understand market trends and emerging opportunities around the Beltline. Now, within the Business Solutions Office, we will focus over the next 18 months on serving over 300 businesses. We anticipate that at least 60 of those businesses will go through the Beltline Business Ventures program, and at least 120 jobs will be retained and or created through these efforts. And earlier this evening at the Create ATL space, we had our inaugural cycle of Beltline Marketplace graduation. These businesses were the first to be part of the Beltline's incubator program. They spent the last 18 months receiving training on technology, on marketing, and sort of adapting to a smaller space and being positioned for growth. And we're excited that we're able to continue to support these businesses as they move on to additional locations around the Beltline. And we look forward to welcoming a new cohort, a new cycle of entrepreneurs in the spring of next year. In fact, we had 120 businesses apply for the new cycle, and we're going to be selecting a handful of businesses for cycle 2 of the Beltline Marketplace in the spring of next year. Next slide. But today we want to talk to you a little bit more about our work around digital inclusion and innovation. It's a new conversation we bring into the quarterly briefing, but we've been working on this quite a while, and actually in 2021, ABI in partnership with EX Squared delivered about 16 miles of conduit and dark fiber underneath the Beltline Trail. So we've sort of developed this technology telecommunications network. And so as we construct trail, we're also laying dark fiber. And the goal here, again, is very clear that this component of the infrastructure project needs to be a vehicle for catalyzing economic inclusion and creating new opportunities and technology connectivity for users and for Beltline communities. And so with this infrastructure, we hope that we can focus our efforts around wellness, access to food, public safety, and just supporting the long-term sustainability of the Beltline project with the ability to use technology to achieve those and to address specific urban issues that the community identify as being critical. So we're excited about the ways that this project can take off, but more importantly, we know that we need your input to help us get there. Just to give you a sense of what Smart Cities project typically looks like, it's really about using technology in urban environments like Atlanta to improve the quality of life of residents, right? So effectively maximizing the investment that we've made to deliver a long-term strategy is going to be critical. And so we're working right now with Honeywell. We've retained the services of Honeywell along with 2 female DBE consultants to help us shape what that strategy looks like going forward. And at the core of that effort is going to be your community of feedback. We want to collect the data. We want to understand from your perspective what types of technology that you think would be necessary for the Beltline to implement for its residents and businesses. And so this is all about focusing the technology around, as I mentioned, digital equity, about enhancing the Beltline user experience, and about improving the quality of life for the people and residents around the Beltline and adjacent communities. I also want to just highlight that this project has been supported generously by the Rocket Community Fund. They're our philanthropic partner, and they're providing financial support to help develop the strategy and additional resources to make this project come to life. And again, the strategy is not going to be developed in a vacuum. It's really about you and your input and your feedback. And this evening, we're going to ask for your help. We're going to pull up a poll in a few minutes, and that's going to help us start the conversation. But we're going to be coming back to the community once we gather as much input to share with you the progress that we're making. And we hope that you will continue to inform and refine the work to make sure that this technology that we're talking about, or these technologies that we're talking about, are going to be tied to a very specific community benefit, whether or not it's safety, food access, connectivity, directions into adjacent commercial districts, whatever that may be. We hope that you can help us with that. So without further ado, I think we're ready for the polls. And so if we can get to the next slide. If you have a smartphone with you, we ask that you can take it out now and use your camera feature to scan the QR code and click the link that's available, and it will take you to Slido, and we will have a poll up for you to be able to offer us some feedback based on what we just discussed in our update. So I'll give you a moment to grab your phone and scan the QR code. So as you do that, on the next slide, the first question we have is, what do you like most? We would love to hear from you the things that you like most about the community that we can either enhance, uplift, or magnify by using technology. So as you scroll through the options, we encourage you to select up to 3 options and then hit send at the bottom to submit your input and your ideas. Remember, you can scan the QR code at your smartphone or click on the link that we provide in the chat to participate in the poll. I see we're getting some participation here. That's awesome. Love that. See, there's still some activity here. It's slowing down. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your input on the first question. We have one additional question coming up, and we're going to move to the next question. Thank you all for those who participated in the first Slido question. I see street lighting, safety, and accessible sidewalks bubbled up to the top. That's fantastic. Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next question. What do I want improve or change within my community? So for the second poll, we would love to hear from you. We can move to the second slide of question. We would love to hear from you some of the things you would like to see improve or change about your community or neighborhood that could potentially be addressed by technology. Again, please select up to 3 options and hit the green button to submit your responses. See, we're getting quite a bit of participation here. Safety, transportation, and mobility options. I also see that safe and accessible sidewalks. We have we have 37 participants here, so that's fantastic. I think this was extremely helpful for us, and I want to thank everyone that participated in the Slido polls. And as I said, as we continue to gather this input. We look forward to creating other opportunities for you to participate as we refine this strategy. We think the conversation is going to be rich, but we also want it to be focused on solving urban issues that you, as the user of the Beltline or as residents around the Beltline or small business owners, you can benefit from this effort. It's all about digital inclusion. It's about smart city, but it's more important about solving some of the challenges that you face or improving some of the things you already like about the Beltline. So I want to thank you all for listening and participating. And with that, I would like to introduce Lynette Reed, our Vice President of Community Engagement, Planning, Arts, and Culture. And I believe this is her first QB as the official Vice President of this department. Over to you, Lynette.
Thank you, Kelvin, and excited about all the work that economic development is doing. And so just want to talk real briefly about where we are with the master plan updates. Many of you know that the original plans were developed in the inception of the Atlanta BeltLine over 10 years ago. And so it was time to refresh and to update those plans based on existing conditions and current trends and development and around a host of issues. And so we've been doing that for the last several years. And so what's the master plan, right? So the purpose of the master plan is to help guide future growth and development for mixed income, mixed use communities. It makes recommendations around policy recommendations and goals around transit-oriented development, mobility, land use, green space. It makes affordable housing recommendations, et cetera. And so you can see on the map there, the sub-areas that we have updated and been adopted. And currently we are working on sub-area 6. We wrapped the community engagement last year. The top of this year, we spent drafting the document. This spring and into the summer, we went to the community to talk through the recommendations and presented a draft document for response and reaction. And so we spent the last couple of months working on those comments, and we'll be submitting an updated draft 2 to the neighbors in sub-area 6 the top of next year and start walking that through the legislative process with the goal of getting it to adoption. So related to planning and engagement, I have the privilege, next slide, please, to work with to oversee the planning engagement team. And that's actually how I started at the Beltline as a community engagement advocate with a planning background. And so that's still a very core central part of what we do as the public involvement continues to play a prominent role in shaping and defining the Atlanta community. And our approach is, the goal is to work with the community in a lot of different levels. And so whether it's from the planning and design and implementation phase, our goal is to make sure that the community has an opportunity to plug in at every point along that process. And so tonight's quarterly briefing happens to be our 30th public meeting of the year. And over those 30 meetings in 2023, we've seen over 1,500 participants. We've attended 40 different external community meetings, and those are invitations that we've either gotten from the community or meetings that we asked, hey, can we be a part of your meeting to talk about a particular project? And the whole goal is about building relationships, right? To ensure that the communities of the Beltline not only know what's happening with the Beltline, but feel heard and also feel like they have a voice in the project. And that's our goal. In addition to our standard public meetings, we have a strategy that we started rolling out this summer and late fall around pop-up engagements. And the theory, the heart behind that is to really meet people where they are, where it's convenient. And so we've done several pop-ups this summer. We've done several youth engagements as well, whether engagements that we hosted with particular schools or council folks. The whole goal of youth engagement is to make sure that the youth of Atlanta know that the Atlanta Beltline is accessible, and also to use it as an educational opportunity to talk about the different types of professions that are needed to make the Beltline happen. And so you'll see more around our pop-up strategy in 2024 as we do more Chapel Road engagement, as we do more transit education around the Beltline. So you look forward to that as we roll out our youth engagement strategy in a little bit more detail in 2024. Again, our whole goal is to make sure that the people of Atlanta are participating in the project in every aspect. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rob Bronner, Executive Director of the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership, to talk about their updates. Rob?
Thank you, Lynette. On behalf of the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership, I want to thank everybody who is taking the time to join us tonight. As many of you may know, the BeltLine Partnership is the 501c3 nonprofit, and we work hand in hand with Atlanta BeltLine Inc., and we help to support the BeltLine vision through philanthropic fundraising that enables them to do a lot of the work that you've heard about, particularly on the construction side. But we also have great programs that help engage the public, and you hear about some of them, but this past weekend, some of you all may have been able to join us. The rain did not deter us at our East Side 3K and 10K that we did with the Atlanta Track Club. Lynette had mentioned the importance on youth. I will say there were lots of youth who ran past me in the 10K, and just want to give a shout out for the family participation that happens there on the Beltline. And then also we have programs that help to empower Beltline residents through partnerships in health and housing and economic opportunity. I do want to give a earnest shout out to our very small and mighty team at the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership, some of whom you will hear from tonight. But you know, we are able to get a lot of the work done that we do through some very hardworking folks, just like the folks at Atlanta BeltLine Inc., and then also through some great partners. As we near the end of 2023, we are excited to share some of our progress and look forward to advancing our work in the new year. If you go to the next slide, please. Really want to lift up the very generous contributions from Atlanta's philanthropic community, particularly the Robert W. Woodruff Foundation and the James M. Cox Foundation, who between them, as many of you may recall, gave more than $100 million that is supporting a lot of the design and construction work for corridor completion that you heard Kim give so many updates about. And those were multi-year commitments that we are very, very grateful for. And then we also have raised philanthropic donations to support the Legacy Resident Retention Program. This pays property tax increases and helps build wealth for low-income homeowners. And you'll hear more about this from Michael in just a minute. But as we move into 2024, our philanthropic fundraising goals are to complete the philanthropic fundraising for Enota Park along the West Side Trail in the Westview community, expand West Side Park with a bike park and trails, and then continue to support the Legacy Resident Retention Program. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Deputy Executive Director, Michael Davis, to share some of our program highlights.
Thank you, Rob. As Rob said, 2024 was an amazing year for us in every way. And the saying is really true. Teamwork makes the dream work. And we wanted to start here by lifting up and say a huge thank you to these amazing partners sharing the slide, because without their collaboration, without their support, the transformative success we had across both our Empower and Engage portfolios wouldn't have happened. So thank you to all of our partners. Next slide, please. 2023 was a huge community engagement year for us, particularly with our youth. We're really proud to say that currently we're at 6,000 plus participants in Mayor Andre Dickens' Year of the Youth and Counting. We also had a record participation year with our BeltLine Free Fitness program, which is the largest free fitness program in Atlanta, with nearly 3,500 class participants all around the BeltLine. If you're a runner, a walker at any competitive level, we have something for you to get out, get your sweat on, and stay healthy around the BeltLine where you live and work. Our weekly run club, which basically allows us to provide at 10 different BeltLine locations the chance to run or walk. And then more importantly, as Rob mentioned a few minutes ago, we completed the third event of our race series for 2023 in partnership with Atlanta Track Club, and we nearly hit 5,000 participants. The most exciting part of this piece for me is our races are really for any competitive level. Do you run? Do you walk? Are you a mother or father with a stroller? Or if you're a pet parent that likes to jog with your dog, this really is something for everyone. Next slide, please. A great way to see, learn, and experience the Beltline is through a tour. We're really excited to say in 2023, we now have 2 Saturday morning bike tours on the West Side, which provide a unique on-trail experience to learn the history of the Beltline, the history of the neighborhoods and our parks. And we're really glad to say we've also partnered with Fulton County Commissioner Natalie Hall on a quarterly senior Beltline bus tour, which I must say is extremely popular with the seniors throughout Atlanta. Next slide, please. A word of thanks to our over 1,000 volunteers who've helped keep the Beltline beautiful by picking up more than 2 tons of litter and debris to keep the Beltline beautiful. We're excited to also say that we relaunched a new and improved Adopt the Beltline. For those who want to be on a regular basis working to keep the Beltline beautiful, please visit our website to learn more about adopting the trail. And I also would be remiss to say, with a month until we have Martin Luther King's birthday, which is a big day for us for volunteering, it's a call for service. So if you sign up, if you scan the QR code on the bottom or visit our website, you can sign up now and participate in our annual day of service to celebrate Dr. King and his legacy. Next slide, please. The partnership works really hard every year to understand the opportunities and challenges to not only equitable health, housing, but also economic opportunities that may affect Beltline neighborhoods containing our residents. We're really proud to say that this year, the participation in the Legacy Resident Retention Program, which as Rob alluded to, pays the tax increases for West Side and South Side residents through 2030. We're proud to say we increased the participation by 122%. As part of that also, the best way to learn about communities and get data insights really is through the Neighbor to Neighbor program. So we're really grateful for support from Brockett Community Fund, which allowed us to go and canvass more than 10,000 neighborhoods in our equity priority areas to understand needs and connect them to resources, but also give us ideas for what we may want to do in terms of policy advocacy to support these Beltline neighbors in the future. And then finally, our free home empowerment workshop series, which includes workshops for everyone on filing home tax exemption work to help you save on taxes, filing tax appeals, protections against equity theft, renters' rights, and financial literacy. We hit record numbers for that. And we also hope to expand this and get to even more people in 2024. So with that, I will turn it now over to our Director of Corporate Partnerships and Individual Giving, Nicole Love, to share more on how businesses in our city can get engaged with the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership.
Can you hear me? Sorry, there we go. Hi, I'm Nicole Love. I just wanted to tell you about a little bit about our Connector Circle program, which is what we use to support a lot of this programming that our team has just spoken about. Our partner program offers civic-minded companies the opportunity to support the Atlanta BeltLine vision and in turn receive curated benefits that align with their mission, goals, and values. This program offers multiple ways for our partners to engage employees, heighten brand awareness, and seamlessly align with the BeltLine's programs and events. Engaging our corporate partners and their employees is a core mission of the Connector Circle program. Many Connector Circle partners give back by volunteering to beautify Beltline parks and trails, assist legacy homeowners in workshops, they paint new murals, and more. Some participants in the workshop participate in Beltline tours, lunch and learns, or health and wellness activities. Others provide mission-aligned support of the programs that we empower for our Beltline residents with resources to help them remain in their homes and thrive, or choose to connect directly with the Beltline enthusiasts via art on the Atlanta BeltLine or the Atlanta BeltLine Race Series and other signature events. This is just a sampling of the benefits your company could curate with our Connector Circle partnership. Please visit beltline.org/sponsor or email me at development@atlblp.org to learn more. Next slide. Also, did you know your support of the Atlanta BeltLine project goes far beyond the construction of trails and parks? Funds raised are vital in supporting the programmatic work that the Atlanta BeltLine Partnership team does and will be delivering in the coming months, from home empowerment workshops to the Legacy Resident Retention Program, public bike tours, volunteer events, free fitness classes, weekly run clubs, and so much more. So we'd love to have your support, and there's many ways for you to do that. First of all, you can always go on our website and make a donation, or even create your own team fundraising campaign. You can visit beltline.org/donate. You could also share the love about the Beltline on your social media platforms just to attract the attention of some of your friends and family members. And lastly, shop the Beltline, support the Beltline. Check out the Beltline merchandise on beltlineshop.org, from sweatshirts to doggy bandanas. There's a lot of fun options and to use and wear and show your love for the Beltline. So I'm going to pass it back to Nathan Soledad, Director of Community Engagement.
Great. Thank you so much, Nicole. All right. That was a lot of information. We're going to go ahead and talk about how we can participate in the Q&A real quick. You can put questions and comments. You can type them in the Q&A box at this time. If you had one that was dismissed earlier, you can copy it, put it back in there. And let's go ahead and talk about the 3 different methods. So if you're on the phone and you'd like to participate, hit *9 on your telephone keypad. That'll effectively raise your hand. I'll see it. Once it's your turn, I will hit a little button on my side, and your phone is going to tell you in your ear to hit *6. That's going to allow you to unmute yourself. If you're online on the Zoom platform, go ahead. You can jump in there and start putting stuff in there. I don't see anything yet, but you can also upvote other folks' questions or comments. Normally, we take raised hands from the Zoom platform, but given the lack of time here, we are going to prioritize fully our phone attendees. So if you are on the Zoom platform, the only way you can participate is to type in your question or comment. Now, if you're on YouTube, feel free to participate in the comments section. Some of our staff will go ahead and do their best to address your questions. So jumping right in, we're going to start with Mr. Chuck Roberts. Can DOT reopen 10th and Monroe by September if Public Storage digs a 30K square foot hole at Monroe and Cayuga? Has the contractor provided a start date and closure times? So far, DOT says talk to ABI, and ABI says it's a DOT project. I don't know. We'll start with Kim or other members of the team if they have
I can try to answer that question. We have a project where we are working with Atlanta DOT and the city of Atlanta, and they asked us to incorporate some intersection work at 10th and Monroe into our project. So that is what we have purview over. We are not doing anything with the public storage remodeling or work in that area. So we can answer questions about the 10th and Monroe, reconfiguration to make pedestrian crossings safer.
Okay, so if you need to refine that, Chuck, and send it in, please do. From Brian Sumlin. Brian says, if someone is interested in one of the committees, can they join, such as the transit team? So we do have, as part of our Beltline Transit study, some different stakeholder committees. In fact, Brian, you're on that now. These are individuals that are tied to particular organizations or neighborhood associations, things like that. If you need further clarification, let us know. Our other committees, like our citizen advisory committees, don't have a focus on transit, although certainly the Tax Allocation District Advisory Committee sometimes does talk about transit. Next up, speaking of TADAC, Lucy, good to see you, hear from you. Where does the work on completing the strategic implementation plan stand? Kelvin?
Thanks, Nathan. Hi, Lucy. Great question. So we have a final draft of the SIP update that is currently under review. We anticipate in the first quarter of next year, we will present officially for the board for a final board review and adoption. But we're really excited to roll out the work that has taken place over the last year in updating the ABI's SIP. Nathan, I think you're still on mute if you're speaking.
You know what? You're right. Thank you. All right. Just to follow up on start date and closure times for 10th and Monroe, that's going back to you, Kim. And you're looking for your mute button. I can see you looking
Yep,
for it.
sorry about that. Yeah, so we are planning a community meeting for that project, which is Northeast Trail Segment 1. And in that next community meeting, we're going to go through the logistics of how the 10th and Monroe work is going to unfold. We're still working through that with the contractor. We have to get permits from the city and things like that. It's not going to be in the near term. Right now, we're focused on the work in the park, but look for that community meeting, and we'll go into that in detail and publish all that information in advance. And we're not going to shut down the entire intersection. We'll be shutting down a lane at a time.
Great, thank you. All right, so I'm going to break up the next one. It's top of the Q&A box. This is from Mr. Matt Garbett. Hey, Matt. Clyde is not on the phone anymore. Number 2, I'll come back to. And yeah, I agree. I think the presentation was a little long tonight, so I'm going to own that one. We did have a few technical problems getting started as we're trying out our new technology with YouTube. We typically just exist on Facebook, so we appreciate your patience. And we're going to extend our meeting a little bit tonight. If you've got to jump off, we understand. Any question that gets placed in the Q&A box, and if it doesn't get addressed, will be in the Q&A report. So depending on how many questions we get, how complicated they are, we'll determine when we post them online at beltline.org/meetings. But definitely, we wish we had had a little more time tonight. So let's keep it moving. I'm going to go to question number 2 and ask Dennis if you'd like to address this. Murphy Crossing still has not been sold. How are the remaining properties going to be sold by 2030 when it resolves?
Sure. Well, first off, Matt, thank you for your continued engagement, and as a West Side resident myself, your continuous advocacy for the West Side. I certainly recognize folks' patience with Murphy Crossing specifically. I do think that is a misnomer that that the Beltline will be dissolving by 2030. There's certainly some work that'll be done beyond that. It's no secret our TAD funding is set to sunset in 2030. That said, we won't necessarily sell all the property either. Our intention is to extract as much community benefit as we can out of these properties, and so that would be perhaps ground lease structures that provide streams of cash flow back for future creation of affordable housing, permanent affordability, commercial affordability. So there's a number of things we're trying to do with these properties, and it takes time. We obviously have to navigate the business environments we're in. We try to do this stuff with extensive community engagement, so it does take time. And so we'll continue to be opportunistic, continue to acquire property, and we'll go through a very robust planning process to ensure that it's developed properly and the public's interest in these properties are maintained.
Great. The next question, sir, please, which is from Dobson. Hey, Laura, how you doing up there in Peachtree Hills? Have any taken place in Peachtree Hills to date? We had a virtual meeting. We did a citywide kickoff on the Beltline Transit Study. I want to say September, don't quote me, but it is on our website earlier this fall. We do, like I said, we have some stakeholder advisory committees that are being formed at this time. And I believe Peachtree Hills should be in the study area. That's what I was actually trying to pull up. But nonetheless, we will be reaching out to the neighborhood groups within the study area to convene in either January or February. So be on the lookout. Yep, here it is, Peachtree Hills. Look at that. Bought myself just enough time. We will be sending out invites from a representative from Peachtree Hills Civics Association along with other neighborhood associations. So stay tuned and also plug into our broader community meetings. The other ones posted online, beltline.org/meetings. Brian Sumlin. Okay, this year and next year, the state will pay property taxes. Explain how this will affect LRRP. Michael or Dennis on that one?
I'll take it. Thank you, Nate, and thank you for the question. The LRP works to pay property taxes for our participants from an increase perspective. We work very closely with the Fulton County Tax Assessor's Office, and we just actually wrote a check to pay property taxes this year. So to the extent with which any of our homeowner participants has an increase in property taxes, we will continue to pay those property taxes like we've had through the life of the program.
Great, thank you. Next question. Maybe I misunderstood. This is Jane. Please clarify, is the bus tour only available for seniors?
I will take that as well. The quarterly bus tour I mentioned is a bus tour that is hosted and coordinated by Fulton County Commissioner Natalie Hall, and it is for seniors exclusively under her direction.
All right. And from Brandon Sherwood, when will the west side portions of the Beltline contain rail? Sean?
Hey, thank you, Brandon. Right now, we see the West Side Beltline in the Tier 2 of the More MARTA program. So it's a little ways out. I think it's 2035 is the time frame for that. So there's planning work going on now, but it's going to be some time until that is done through the More MARTA program, or it could be pulled forward if additional funding streams are identified.
Next question for Dennis is from Laura Dobson. Also, where is the protection for existing affordable housing? And also, this is for Calvin. And local businesses in Peachtree Hills this week, 2 long-term local businesses lost their lease, and an existing 60% affordable housing complex will be demolished for luxury housing.
Sure, I'll hop in. So, unfortunately, you have individuals that, will go out and be opportunistic and, acquire properties for their intentions and for their profit. And so this happens if there aren't deed restrictions on these properties. And so more than likely for the affordable housing complex specifically, their use restrictions that were recorded on that property had it expired. And so it was sold to the highest and best offer. That said, what we're doing to preserve, we are working with developers that are mission focused to provide them with capital resources and connections to help them to go and renovate property. And so Chelsea Arkin had mentioned we're expecting a closing. I'll give you an example of GE Tower. It's an opportunity to preserve 200 units of affordable housing. So we are, it is a focus of ours. Unfortunately, we will lose some units in the market from time to time.
Yeah, and thank you, Dennis, and I'll hop in really quickly. Laura, anytime a business loses a lease around the Beltline, it's concerning to us, and we'll be happy to connect with you offline to learn more about those businesses and see how we might be able to provide support through our Business Solutions office. Commercial affordability is a priority of ours, so would love to connect with you offline as to figure out how we can help.
All right, I'm going to try to take a couple. We're going to get wrapping up here soon. From Brian, how can we ensure max participants are at Beltline meetings? For example, the last set of meetings, the East Side dominated participation, the last 3 meetings, and at the Beltline breakfast poll. We do track that, and we do targeted outreach at times depending on the subject matter. For example, a quarterly briefing is going to be citywide versus Chapel Road. We do a lot of our outreach on the west side. So it doesn't mean, all of our meetings are public meetings. They're open to like I said, the public. But we do try to balance that to get the most local response as possible. To Laura, we do. Yeah, the citywide conversation was open to everyone, right? So we do have public meetings on all of our subjects just because we have additional layers of engagement with the stakeholder advisory committee. We still have the public meetings open. With regards to in-person, we have been playing around with some in-person again, some hybrid meetings. We've also done a lot of pop-ups. So what we found is, given the number of subjects we cover, that the virtual format has worked quite well. Our numbers are actually higher than when we were in the in-person environment, but we also know that virtual doesn't work for everyone, right? And we really think that we're going to have a great opportunity to expand our pop-up program where we get deeper in the neighborhoods, like Lynette said, to meet people where they are. We can't have a singular approach of person or virtual, or even just, hybrids. So look in 2024 for more in-person touch points, in particular around transit education. I'm at 8:05. I'm going to try to clear the queue if we can. Mr. Thomas, when will construction start on the permanent trail going east from Pittsburgh Yards? When will the permanent stairs be installed on Pryor University, Kim?
I'm having a hard time. Sean, do you know which segment that's on?
That's 2 and 3.
Oh, Southside Trail 2 and 3. Okay, great. Thank you. So Southside Trail 2 and 3, we just put out for bid to construction. So we're expecting that project to be under construction by May of next year. And we expect that project schedule to be 2 years. I hope that helps.
It does. We're going to clear this out. No more questions in the Q&A, please. If you do have a follow-up, send it to engage@atlbeltline.org. Brittany, please put that in the chat. Rob is going to follow up on the LRRP for a little clarification from Brian.
Thanks. Hey, Brian. Appreciate the question. Property taxes are complicated. Based on the FAQs that the state has on their website about the credit, one, it's not a 100% credit. It's a $18,000 reduction of the assessed property value, which the homeowners will see on their next property bill. So basically, it does lower their property tax commitment, but it's not a full refund. And as Michael said in the first answer, we are covering increases from a base year of 2019 or 2020. So there are likely still increases, and we'll cover that increase. What it means is we'll be able to pay more, be able to help more homeowners through that program. Hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, Rob. And just like I said, engage@atlbeltline.org. Brittany will put that in the chat. And we're going to go ahead and move on to a couple polling questions to close out our evening. We'll have you out of here at 8:10 p.m. Thank you for sticking around. So let's go ahead and poll those up. No pun intended. Was the information presented tonight helpful in changing your perception and or understanding of the Beltline project? Single choice, yes. No, no opinion. I almost felt like a game show host there. Haven't felt that way during the polls before. Maybe because we're rushing a little bit. All right, we're going to lock that in. We have a yes at 79%, no at 13%, and a no opinion at 8%. If there is more clarity that you seek, or if you have additional conversations that you'd like to have, again, you're going to want to hit that engage@atlbeltline.org. And next poll. And did you learn something new? Real straightforward. Single choice. Let's lock again. We got 92% of the audience learned something new. That's cool. I feel like I always learn a few new things on these quarterly briefings. There's so much work being done. And a few folks who need a little more clarity. So again, you should see that email address in the chat box at this time. All right. I'm sorry to keep you. I'm sorry we started a little late, but I appreciate everybody, taking a chance to listen to this. We will post the recording online. We appreciate your participation. We know you're going to come up with some questions that come up afterwards. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you to the ABI team. Thank you to the ABP team. But most importantly, thank you all in the virtual world for being part of the Atlanta